Welcome. Today is Thursday, January 7th, 2021. It is 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and this is the monthly meeting of the City of Revere Human Rights Commission. We'll begin by doing a roll call of the commissioners. So please unmute yourself and say that you're present or wave your hand. Lynn Alexis.
Present.
Reverend Timothy Bogertman, I do not see yet. So as of now, Reverend Timothy Bogertman is not present. Chief Christopher Bright.
Present.
Chief David Callahan is absent, as he has a conflict and he has another city meeting. Jalon Fowler.
Present.
Dr. Lorenzo Garcia.
Present.
Shema Mansour Hosseini.
Present.
She is our vice chair, Shay. Rashid Mukabir.
Present.
Peru Pish. I think she said present. It came through a little soft. Kathy Ann Reinstein.
Present.
And I am Janine Grillo-Mara, the chairperson, and I am present. We have the Mayor Brian Arrigo, joining us. Welcome. We typically begin these meetings with a little bit of settling in silence. I'd like to share just a few words considering the events in the past 24 hours, and especially what's happened in the country and in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol. When we take this time to just settle and to have some silence, it is by no means ignoring or denying what's happening. It is a support to return to that which is within us, that is always present, always open, always relaxed, and inclusive. And so that is the intention of our settling in, arriving, and silencing. Not that we're trying to contract ourselves away from, but rather to be able to include all and then respond in a more skillful way rather than reacting in ways that might be fixated or aggressive. So just a couple of minutes, if you'd like to, you can sit back in your seat. And if it's helpful, you can close your eyes, but really do whatever feels safe and comfortable for you. Simply feel the support of the chair, the support of your seat. Feel the flow of your breath in and the flow of your breath out. Not needing to control or regulate it unless you're drawn to breathe more slowly and deeply. Just let everything settle in its own way, its own place, its own time. And take a moment to reflect on the importance of the Human Rights Commission and how we want to serve and be of benefit to this community and how it will ripple out into the world. And then if you'd like, you can take a nice, slow, deep breath and open your eyes if they were closed. Wait a minute. Give me 1 second. I have issues sometimes with my webcam. Before I invite the mayor to speak, I just would like to remind not only myself and all commissioners or even all panelists that are here to consider using your pronouns next to your name so that it may help for those who identify in different ways to feel included and to feel safe. And to do that, you find your image, you go to the upper right corner with the 3 dots and click on rename, and then just add after your name whatever your preferred pronouns may be. If they're the ones that, if it's the gender that you were born with, that's how you identify, or some other way, or it could be they if you identify both. And Claudio, if you were so inclined to join us, you could feel free to put yours in Spanish. That might be actually better for those who would relate to that language instead. And I'm happy to invite Mayor Brian Arrigo to join us and to share some words.
Good evening, everyone. I've had some spotty internet, so if everyone could give me a thumbs up if I'm coming through okay. Okay, all right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And first, let me thank all of you for your willingness to serve. I know I've said that a couple of times to the folks on the HRC, but you know, as dark as the last 24 hours have been for our country, I am reminded of the fact that we have so many great people in our community stepping up to do the necessary and difficult work that is ahead. And I wanted to just take a moment because earlier today I did release a short video to our residents to share some of my thoughts about yesterday's attack and some of the factors that led to it. And I just want to reiterate the fact that the people who chose to question the results of an election and thought that using violence to change people's minds and influence decisions that are being made, those people do not represent our values. They do not represent American values. They do not represent the American people. And so with the assault on democracy that we saw yesterday, I've chosen to look inward and think about my role as a leader in the community. I'm asking residents to think inward and think about their role as community members.
I think we just lost the mayor's internet.
We can still see him, but he's frozen. Ruben, will you send him a chat just so that he knows, please?
I've done that.
Thank you.
All right, I think we should continue for now, and then when he's able to get back on, I'll monitor the participants to see if he gets back in.
Looks like he's back.
Mr. Mayor, are you back?
I am back, but nobody, I see no pictures, and I keep getting a message that my internet is unstable.
Well, we can hear you now.
Thank you. All right. I apologize for that. So as I was saying, I've chosen to look inward, and I'm asking our residents to do the same. And I'm sure, knowing all of the people that are part of our Human Rights Commission, I know you all are thinking inward and have been thinking inward since being brought on board. If there is any kind of silver lining or anything to take away from the shameful acts of yesterday, I think that we have an opportunity to double down on the things that are within our control and the things that we can do to the divisions that we know have been
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Sometimes if he blocks his video, that would give him more bandwidth and we might at least be able to hear him. Ruben, I don't know if you agree with that, if he comes back to join.
It's a good idea.
If he pops back in, we'll give it a minute, see if he pops back in and make that suggestion. And if not, we'll continue on. Okay. Okay, so we'll continue then. I had distributed the minutes from the December 3rd monthly meeting. And so please speak if you feel that anything needs to be changed, or someone can submit a motion that we approve those minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd meeting.
I second that.
Okay, so the minutes from the December 3rd meeting have been approved. Thank you. And the first couple of agenda items are really more of an update. The executive director status. In communicating with the mayor recently, seeing how the commission is unfolding, so let's see. Mr. Mayor, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can, and probably a good idea to keep the video off to
Yeah.
save some bandwidth, although we
Yep.
would love to see your face, but we have to work with internet unpredictability, unfortunately. It's a wonderful teacher for going with the flow.
We're gonna make sure that our internet is working a little bit better here in City Hall tomorrow. I can tell you that. I apologize for that, everyone. So I know I got cut off a couple of times, but I want to just reiterate from my message earlier today that yesterday's violence was incited by one person. And it's kind of a scary thought to think that that one person can push things to where they went yesterday. And the divisions that exist in our country and they exist in our community as well. They've existed long before Donald Trump, and they will exist after January 20th unless we change it. And I look at all of you as leaders in our community and folks that are going to lead that change. And this is an opportunity for us to double down on the things that we have within our control, and the work that we can do to overcome the fear, overcome the mistrust, the anger, the resentment that we know lives in our community. And we have to be the ones to choose peace and unity over division. And I know all of you are, I know I'm preaching to the choir on this, but it's our work to amplify that. And so, you know, as I look at all of you, and I apologize that you can't see me, I know that this commission is going to guide us in a lot of that work. I am extremely grateful for all of you, and I know that you're going to make sure that every single person in our community is embraced, every single person in our community is treated equally, and with dignity and respect. And I can't thank you enough for your commitment to our community. So I just wanted to hop on and say that I am eternally grateful for the work that you do. Thank you for your commitment to our community. And we do have a lot of work ahead, but we're gonna do that together. And I look forward to listening to tonight's discussion and hearing how I can support your work as your mayor. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. It's an honor to have you join us and to hear your words and your support, not only for this commission, but for the community and for all. Okay, so the first two agenda items are really more of an update. The executive director status. In recent conversations with the mayor, as well as looking at how this commission is unfolding and the foundational systems and processes that we really need to put in place and then implement, it's become clear that having an executive director in place to give us input as well as direction is really important. And so we'd like to move forward with that without rushing, but as quickly as we can. So we're asking that all of the commissioners please consider submitting any names of colleagues or friends or loved ones that you feel would be capable, interested in this position. You can forward that information to me, and then I can follow up with the person. If you don't know anyone, but you want to submit criteria that you feel is important for this position, any kind of particular training or degree or experience, you can submit any criteria. You can submit either or both, whatever you're drawn to do. So please do that as soon as you can, because the mayor and I will then set up interviews with possible candidates. And we want the commissioner's input, but we also don't want to bog down the process where we have to all be present all the time. It would be ideal that we could all be present for interviews. So in order to keep things moving, I will let you know whenever any interviews are scheduled. And if you are interested and available, you are more than welcome to join myself and the mayor in these interviews. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on this? This is more of an update. Or Mayor Rigo, if I missed anything or you would like to clarify anything, please speak up and share. Kathy?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just, I guess, a clarification, and I probably should know this, and I apologize if I'm asking you to be repetitive. Were there any requirements that were required in the statute? I don't believe so. And then, is this a volunteer or a paid position? And if it's paid, do we know of a salary range before we kind of contact people if we know people are interested?
So I'm looking up the ordinance now. This was something I was actually going to ask the mayor. I know that the executive director needs to be appointed by the mayor. We do not have a budget, and my understanding is that right now the ordinance does not specify any particular training, and it does not have any pay associated with it. However, that is something I've been considering that we may need to suggest in this process. And it was actually something that before we started the interviews that I was planning to speak with the mayor about, to see, does this need to start just as a volunteer position? Is it something that we might be able to ask for some kind of stipend or whatever there might be, if there might be some reimbursement. But I'm not sure. The mayor might be listening, but not really actively participating. So if he doesn't.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's certainly something that we can consider for the 2022 budget, right? So where there's no budget right now, we can.
So you're breaking up, but I'm gathering that there is nothing for this budget, possibly something to consider in 2022. So thank you, Chair Mara, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this topic?
One thing that I thought about is that what if we could have like something of a short, like a quote unquote executive director for like the short term until we have like a confirmed one. Only like it can be also like a voluntary position, but I feel like there's a lot of things that we can do when we have an executive director. And I understand that it is going to take us a long time to find an official one. So I was thinking like, why not find someone who could be kind of like a placeholder for that position now until we find someone officially? I don't know if that's a good idea.
The mayor had internet issues again. So my sense is that we could consider that if the person, had the qualifications, was interested, met with sort of the approval of whoever was present for an interview, and there wasn't somebody else that was already available that could do this long term. Ideally, I think it would be nice to have the consistency and stability of someone from the start. Yet I agree. I think that we may need to consider to not put this off. If the right person is available and they're interested in a temporary position, if the mayor agreed to it, then we could proceed that way. I think that we need to get direction from him on this.
I think just if I could add anything to this, to that matter, I would say that it's possible that we can find someone that probably could do it for a year or so. It's all depend on the conversation, on the way we frame the conversation with the person. And the person could be probably do this on a trial basis, and actually will be very good, because a year would give us some indication, some data in terms of the effectiveness of this position. And even if this person likes it, probably he has 1 year under his belt, he has already some experience, and the transition to an effective position will be much easier. So it's a function of finding someone with qualification, willingness to do it. That way you would go to a trial and period, which will allow us to gather all the data, all the evidence, or everything else. And then the person is already in the job. If it becomes a paid position, then we have a clear idea where this person is going, and probably will be, he's bringing already some experience into the job.
Mhm. So it sounds like even when we have someone that may be more quote unquote permanent, it would be a good idea to have a sort of temporary trial period built into that, so that we could all see how it is, not only us, but also the mayor, the city, the public, to see how it's all going, and then reevaluate a year into it. Is that correct, Dr. Garcia?
That's exactly what I just said. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anything else on this matter? So my sense is that we don't need to have any motions, because this is just sort of updates and discussions, and these decisions are not made here. Is that correct, Chief Bright?
It's at the pleasure of the chair. If you'd like a motion, it can always be a motion.
Okay.
With this position, would we create a job description for it and then, ask the city to post it on the city webpage? How will we advertise it?
I'm not sure how much, again, I would defer to the mayor. I don't know how much we can deviate, if that's the best word. For instance, if someone in this group had an awesome candidate and everything went well, and this person could get started on a trial basis sooner rather than later, I would love to see that. Not that I don't want to see the proper channels, but it's going to take a while, unless who would create the job description? If we have to create it here the same way that we've created the mission statements, it's going to take a bit of time to get everyone's input and agreement. So I think the trial period sort of helps to build in some on-the-job training, evaluation, feedback. But I'm happy to hear from the rest of the commission, from the mayor. Something I could add, if those of you that have ideas for criteria for this position can get it to me fairly soon, then I have no problem compiling information and presenting it to the mayor, and it can also be posted within the city. But I would definitely like to have input from this commission for what the criteria should be in the job description, rather than just handing this off to somebody else to do. Yes, Karu.
I would love to see a commitment from the city as well to kind of have this position as a paid position, because I think we need somebody to hold that space, and an executive director who can deliver all of the tasks or work within the community and work in conjunction and partnership with the commissioners for, holding each other accountable.
Yes. Thank you, Karu. Agree. What I'd like to do now, would someone be willing to submit a motion to request that in the 2022 budget that this position become a paid position? The details may have to be worked out, but that consideration is at least something that's coming, that recommendation is coming from this commission.
I have a question.
Mhm.
whatever the majority of the board agrees is fine with me. Before we make a motion, like to go to the city council to ask for that, should we maybe first, like you suggested, Chair Mara, to kind of get some suggestions to you so that we can have kind of a clearer picture so it could be more defined by us? That's
Yes.
just my thought.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to go to the city council now. What I'm sensing is that there's a lot of agreement that this position is an important position and needs to be reimbursed in some way to put that value on it and what it will involve. I'm looking for sort of, is everyone in agreement of that?
Oh, understood. Yes.
Yes. So
I would agree to have like this as a paid position, so the people can be held accountable. And it seems like probably it's too early to discuss that until we come up with a job description and see what we gotta pay these people for. In my opinion, it's too early to discuss that until probably we should take our time since we are putting the building blocks of this commission together. I think we should be the one creating the job description for that position. And even we could form a subcommittee to interview candidates for that specific position.
Thank you, Rashid. In theory, I agree. My concern, seeing some information that has come through my email about what actions we may need to take, what responses we need to take, how residents can submit an incident form to the HRC. There's a lot that I feel we want to have an executive director in place to help guide that. And if we don't have an executive director in place and we wait for a subcommittee and go through all of this and it takes 3 or 4 months, then all of those processes need to be put off. And at least personally, I'm weighing out the ideal with how can we proceed in a way that is still integral and sort of responsive, but is not going to take months. But again, that's just my sense. So I'm happy to hear from the commission.
Janine, I agree with what you just said. And I also agree that some of the input as to the job description should very well come from us and some of our needs and what we'll need. But I think it's necessary also to have the city be involved in creating what the job description is, maybe get Labor Council involved with some of the just like the internal descriptions of what that entity is as far as the executive director. But surely taskers and some of the support that we'll need should definitely kind of be suggested from us.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about even the ordinance that was, created by the city with our role. So I think it is prudent to get the city involved in that way.
Thank
I don't know
you.
if the mayor is still on, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry. You could ask the mayor, perhaps the HR department could help us with the job description.
We must have a mind meld. I just wrote down Labor Council, HR. So yes, and this is helpful because what I've noticed in anticipating what we may be working with, we're not a judicial body, yet we're going to be working with issues that have legal implications. And that's why we need someone that's in the executive director position that really can clearly inform us what our role is and what we need to refer out, or when there is other counsel involved, how we work within that. And so these are all things that I've been considering since our last meeting, just in these first couple of months that we've been sort of together. So what I've just go ahead, Lynn.
And also with that too, to be able to give us the resources to point us to the judicial bodies that are going to be accountable for some of these issues that we see.
Yes. Yes, exactly. With just a little research that I did, I saw that there are different state and federal bodies that deal with housing discrimination or job discrimination, and that was what helped me realize we need to have an executive director to give some guidance here. Before I summarize this, to make sure I'm clear, and for myself and the vice chair with the minutes, did anyone else want to speak?
Yeah, it's just, in addition to what the chief just said with regards to the human resources and ways in which we can get the job description. The executive director of the Human Rights Commissioner is a position that exists everywhere in many places. There are many job descriptions out there that we can find that can be tailored to our needs. So there's no reason to make these as, yes, we have to look at it, look at our own context and look at the reality of our city and try to but I'm sure that we can find a job description that details the duties and responsibilities of the director and submit to you. And then that probably add some value to what the human resources has at the city.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. So what I is that not any details, but once we have more information about the job, we do feel that the 2022 budget needs to consider some payment for this position. It may have a temporary time frame built into it, a year or whatever we decide, a trial. We will ask for some help from human resources and maybe the city solicitor. That's, or if there is any, I don't know if the city has a labor council, but I know we have a city solicitor. We can use other job descriptions. So I would suggest, and I will follow up after the meeting, that if anyone comes across an executive director of a HRC job description that you like, pass it along. If you know of someone just on the sort of right away that you feel would be a good candidate that you want to pass along a name. If you don't come across a job description, but there's certain things you feel are important to include in the criteria of a job description, pass along. Did that pretty much capture that conversation? And we'll do the best we can, and I'll do the best I can compiling the information and moving it along so that this sort of isn't rushed, but we can get someone in place, fairly soon.
I did have one question. Oh, sorry, Lynn. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just asking to Janine if we should put a time frame on it, just so we can kind of. But that was the only point that I was.
Yeah, I know the last couple of months we've had holidays, so I've figured people may have had time off and whatnot. So when I follow up with an email, I will put a time frame that I'll request you to respond. It really helps for people to respond within the time frame. I appreciate and respect everyone's busyness, but this is also important work, and it really helps when people respond because each of your input is valuable and important. Jalon?
Thank you. So I was just curious, when is the municipal budget? Is it on a June to June basis, or is it calendar year?
July to July fiscal budget.
Thank you.
I see Mr. Mayor has raised his hand. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry about that. And I know Chief Wright just answered the question, but we're on a July 1st to June 30th fiscal year. And before I got cut off, maybe the 5th or 6th time tonight, I was just saying that any appropriations that we would consider, we would put before the city council. One note to just keep in mind is that the the ordinances that govern the HRC right now state that nobody would be paid, if all positions would be unpaid. So one piece that the commission may want to look at are ordinance changes and any other tweaks that you all may want to take to those governing kind of pieces. But that's something that we would have to incorporate into any request to the council.
And Mr. Mayor, for any, I understand the budget is July 1 to June 30. In terms of any changes or recommendations that may come from this commission about the ordinance, is there any time frame that has to be submitted, or is that at any council meeting that when we had the information ready, that could be submitted?
Yep, that could be done at any time. You know, that there's no time frame for that. And honestly, for the commission, I would think probably the earlier the better. But yeah, there's no time restrictions or commitments that would have to be made.
Okay, thank you for confirming that.
Chairperson, just one more thing to consider. Since this person that will be appointed for the executive director will go before the city councilor, we would like, probably while we are creating that job description, we would like to hear some feedback from the councilor, or go back to the previous meetings that happens in the past, or seek some advices from the clerk. It will just avoid us a lot of, you know, we don't want to put anybody in the spot, and that process may take a longer time. So I think we should learn from previous experiences, and that feedback could be incorporated into the job description.
Okay, thank you, Rashid. Good point. Mr. Mayor, if you can hear me, do you feel it's enough for me to communicate with you and the city clerk to actually see whatever was already documented and recommended? Or do you feel that this should be brought up anew with the city council?
So why don't we sit down with the clerk and see and get together and see what we have. I think that would be a good first step.
Thank you, because my understanding is that there may have already been some recommendations that arose in those earlier meetings around the executive director. So that sounds like a good starting point. Okay. Okay, we can go on. Last meeting, we talked about the format for these meetings, and we had different discussions about the circle process, about having some group norms, having maybe, you know, starting the meeting besides the silence with our mission statement or values when we have them. Also to have a forum so that people from the public could request to speak. And again, I'd like the executive director to have some input on this, because these will be important foundational practices, not only within the group, but with the public. I did want to report that Carew graciously submitted a very comprehensive resource for the circle process. And we do not have a budget, so we would not be able to pay for training, even if we all voted or there was a majority to proceed with that. She is looking into maybe having it be done free. So she's already submitted that, and she's working on looking at the cost, if there is a cost. I ask if you have any group norms, any specific ideas, again, you can submit them if you have any other thoughts or resources. And I am already giving thought to how we can have the audience and the public participate, and have reached out to the city clerk. She has given some guidelines for how this can happen, and it's a matter of now how to put the logistics in place in terms of requesting time to speak and how that can work in a way within the time frame. So if things take too long with putting an executive director in place, we will proceed with that on our own. Again, I'd like to just have an executive director give input to how much time to allow for the public to speak and in the process for that. But I don't want to put that off. I don't want to put the public being involved off too long. So we'll just need to see how things unfold. And Karu, please feel free, if I did not speak accurately for you, you can unmute yourself.
Covered everything, and I'm reaching out to a couple of colleagues of mine, and I'm having conversation tomorrow about getting kind of pro bono training for us. And I reaching out to the restorative justice civil training at Suffolk University as well, and see what they can provide for our training. I think the only thing is the training, it takes like, when I did the training, it takes 2.5 days because you really get into the core of it. And the circle process training, it addressing everything, racial justice, social justice, norm, and other practices for the, indigenous governance. So we're gonna have to decide that, and or we might need to shorten the time frame. I will keep you posted.
Thank you. And this is why I would like an executive director input, because I think each of you would need to review these materials to give your input. One sense that I have is it might be that there's an integration. We somehow integrate the philosophies and the processes of circle within a city type of meeting, or that the training might be somehow streamlined. I think there's a lot to consider about how we may implement this, and I would definitely want the executive director to have some input in the ideas, as well as when all of you see the materials, you can also give your input. Moving on, Vice Chair Shea is also the new subcommittee, the subcommittee chair for the Mission Statement Subcommittee. Chief Bright had offered that service, and just due to some scheduling conflicts, it was best for him to step back, be involved in the subcommittee, but not have to chair it. So Shea, would you give us a brief report from the subcommittee meeting the other night?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. I'm Shay. I'm just gonna give like a small summary of what happened in the January 4, 2021 subcommittee meeting. Essentially what we did is that we met and we reviewed the previous 4 mission statements that were first discussed on the December 3rd general meeting, and as well as 3 additional potential mission statements that were submitted after the general meeting. We all came together to create one mission statement that kind of encompasses all of the ideas that we saw in all of the mission statements, and that was distributed by Madam Chair before this general meeting, and we voted unanimously to submit this one for you guys to review and see what you guys think of the product of the mission statement. We did save other relevant information that that can be included as like vision, values, goals, and objectives. Once we reach that point. So that's just like an overview of what happened in the subcommittee on Monday. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Shay. Shay did an awesome job live editing. So would you all like me to screen share that mission statement?
Would it be good for the public to have it shared or, okay.
Yeah, I think so. Can everyone see this on my screen? Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to stop share for one moment. Even though the subcommittee unanimously agreed on this, we would like to get input from everyone. And as Shay said, there was a lot of other really important information that we highlighted and saved that will eventually make its way in other areas. So just looking at the time and being mindful that we usually go for an hour and a half, I'd like to still go through and give everyone an opportunity to speak. And when your name is called, Shay, do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. So when Shay calls your name, if you don't feel ready to speak for any reason, just say pass. And then we'll come back to you and check in again. So this way, if you're ready to speak, you can just give some input. I ask you to, speak freely and openly with a bit of mindfulness around time, because it would be nice after everyone speaks to give the group an opportunity. Sometimes you want to add something to it. So I'm trying to integrate some ways of sharing and speaking that will work until we have a formal process. So I'll screen share, and Shay, if you could call on people and you can either pass or just speak up. And just, could someone speak up and say if this is large enough?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so I will start with the first person. Lynn Alexis, if you would like to go first, please.
So just as being a part of the mission statement subcommittee, I think the statement.
Lynn, could you just get closer to your device so we can hear you?
Sure, is this better?
Yes, thank you.
So I like this statement, and what we tried to do was to be broad enough to empower everyone of Revere in the task of the Human Rights Commission, but a specific focus with amplifying the needs of the vulnerable and the marginalized. So I think that the statement really does a good job at doing that and just, yeah, empowering the community in that way.
Thank you very much, Lynn and Alexis. I would like to pass it on to Chief Christopher Bright.
I'd like to yield my time maybe to one of the committee members, not one of the subcommittee members, to hear what they think. Again, I think the mission statement is, I think it's pretty good. I'd like to hear from some of the commissioners who aren't on the subcommittee.
Yeah, of course. Jalon Fowler, if you would like to go next.
Thank you, Shay. I think that it's solid. Thank you all for putting the time in. I think the round that we did originally helped, a lot, and it shows. I think words matter. I think it's great that we have everyone in here, that we point out vulnerable and marginalized, equities there, respect, fairness, justice. I think it's a strong statement. I like it. Thank you all.
Sorry about that. I would like to thank you very much for that input, Joanne Fowler. I would like to pass it on to Kathy Reinstein.
Hi, thanks, Shay. I'm actually going to echo what Jolan said. I think she said it really well. This is harder than it looks to craft a statement, so I really commend the subcommittee members. And, like Jolan said, I feel like everyone was really listened to. And that's really the point of this committee, right? So I think it's great. I think it was brilliant that you saved the other sections for when we dive into other parts of what we need to do as a commission. And you want something that you can either say quickly, or we can put on letterhead, or you can put as a tag on an email address or whatever. And I think it's really important that it's inclusive. So thank you all for your work on this.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Catherine Reinstein. I would like to pass it on to Rashid Mohabit.
Thank you so much, Shai, for giving me this opportunity. I think it's a great mission statement. We spent time to put it together. And I'm really proud of the work that all of us did. We tried to include a lot in a short statement. It's not an easy one. There is a lot of stuff that probably we still think that can be added, but it will go toward other parts, such as the common goals, the values. We could add more stuff in there. And what is very close to my heart is that sentence where it says, especially the most vulnerable and marginalized people. These are the people that need us the most. And I remember when I was discriminated against probably 10 years ago, I didn't speak the language very well. I didn't know how to navigate the system. To be honest with you, I was crying because I couldn't have anyone to help me at that time. But not that long ago, maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I was discriminated against. I was able to defend myself, and a lot of you remember that. We gotta be doing that job for these people, the most vulnerable and marginalized people. And I would like to see if, since all of these positions are not paid, we want to see if the city can help us use some of the translators or community liaison people that can help us reach out to those people, because they don't speak the language. How can they come toward you and voice their opinion? These are the people that we want to be their voice. And thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Rashid. I would like to pass it on to Karu.
First and foremost, thank you so much, subcommittee, for putting this together. And I know it's a lot of words, and to try to put it together is a great mission. And I'm also reading, and as we putting together, this mission, I feel like I'm sitting here from a privileged place and trying to put together a mission statement for the community. Even though I'm representing the community, but I don't represent all. So I'm also just curious to moving forward, how do we solicit information or input from community as a whole, so that the community also have the ownership of anything we create. And I said this before, the word empower, because it's a good word. And I, been doing a lot of work with survivors, domestic violence, sexual assault. And there are lots of conversation around the word empower that I don't always use. But I can agree with disagreement.
Thank you very much, Kuru. Let's see. I wonder. Dr. Garcia, if you would like to go next, thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for submitting a lot of resources. You've done a great job looking elsewhere, looking for resources, materials, and you sent to us. We have an extensive discussion on the way things should be written, and that was very good. And I think all that discussion really informed the current draft of this document, and I'm very grateful for that. I've done some other diggings around to see if we could come up with a solid, where we could find some compromise. Let's put it that way. And I have to tell you, this is one of the best mission statements that I've seen. I think some of you mentioned the word vulnerable, marginalized. I was not born in this country. I know how difficult it is for people coming from other countries. And, Rashid was right on the money when he said that people are discriminated based upon on their accent, the way they speak, the way they interact. Sometimes they're misunderstood by others. They are perceived because of the language barrier and language, accent and other things. They are perceived as less intelligent. We face these issues all the time in schools when we see our ESL students enrolling in our public schools. They might come with a strong background in their language, in their culture. And then all of a sudden, they start speaking English or showing some accent, or they are perceived as less intelligent. And this is not just in our public schools. These are things that we see in the literature everywhere, especially in the multicultural literature. So I'm glad that Rashid mentioned that, because that's true. And we want to make sure that they are empowered, they are educated, they have the tools and know-how to really to enable them to navigate the system and be successful. And I think this mission statement really translates that. There are some powerful words there. Any city, any group that would look at this mission statement, I would say that they would feel proud of it. So I just want to thank all of you for your work. And I think we have something very meaningful that we can be all proud of. And great job, everyone.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Garcia. Madam Chair, if you would like to add anything about the mission statement.
I'll just briefly say that although we each may have our opinions on specific words or wording, that despite that, I feel that this overall is really powerful, inclusive, and that it's been wonderful to work with all of you to come up with this and agree on it, that even though our particular wording may not have been in the way we wanted to, that we can all agree that this works overall for what we want to do.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Chair. Is there, now that everyone has gone through, is there anyone that would like to add on any comments or questions or concerns about the mission statement? Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, I meant to put my hand up. I apologize for just saying something out loud. I guess once everyone's done, I guess we would have to do a motion to accept it. So I'm just asking that question, and I'll wait till other people have spoken.
Yes, Kathy, you're correct. At the end of this conversation, we'll get to that, because I would like to finalize, or at least have a motion to submit it for public input. So we'll get to that as long as we know that we're all done speaking.
Anyone else wants to comment that has already gone? Go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Shay. So yeah, just to Dr. Garcia's point, I had not even realized that the marginalized also includes people of immigrant. I'm actually an immigrant myself, and my parents immigrated here from Haiti. So just to think that even those people, you know, in light of everything that's going on in our country, we often are just like narrow visioned at what human rights, like what is the national conversation. But just it was nice to remember that this is really inclusive with everyone that kind of faces lack of equity opportunities and the access to get those. So that was a nice wake-up call there too.
May I say something, Shay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add on what Lynn said, I see part of our work is really anyone that's outside of the society of whiteness and have been brought up and raised in more privilege and opportunities, it falls into that category. And I'm hoping that that will be part of what this commission will be addressing in our work, is seeing that from all different perspectives.
Thank you very much for that, Madam Chair. Before the Madam Chair makes the decision to motion the mission statement, does anyone else want to provide any input for the mission statement before we move on? All right. It's I'll send the mic back to you, Madam Chair.
So before we have a motion, Karu did bring up an important point, and I know Rashid and others have brought this up in the past of how to get public input. So I would like to see us, from our perspective as a commission, today finalize this, but have it be, this is my brain fog, dependent's not the best word, dependent on additional input we may have from the public. So does anyone disagree with having the public have input before this becomes official?
Madam Chair, I believe that it's good to have that public feedback, but I think if we look back at the process of creating this mission statement, the public has been involved because we asked everyone to talk to their networks and come up with their feedback. But I don't mind it. If you want to run it one more time by the public, we could give them a chance, but it's been done. I just want to mention that to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rashid. I think I was thinking that with a deadline, it could be put on our HRC webpage for a certain amount of time, a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever, and before we can take the next step. So I don't mean to drag this out, but I'm thinking of a way to do it that might be a little bit more far-reaching. But again, I'm open to hearing from the commission.
I agree with Rashid. I think I myself, prior to submitting my statement to you, I discussed it with a couple parents, and we can certainly put it out there, solicit input, but and probably that will reinforce the mission statement and give a deadline by which people should be providing some input or feedback. But I think the initial phase has been done. So, but I'll leave it to other people to express their opinion.
Yeah, I agree with both Rashid and Dr. Garcia. I think like having that deadline just so we don't drag it out for so long, and like I feel like we already have such an amazing statement. So it's like having that deadline just so we could, not to be rude or anything, but like just get it once and done and over it, and like move on to the other things that we want to work on as a committee.
Lynn?
Wondering, this is my thought, and I value the opinion too of the public, and I think it's necessary, but I'm wondering if that stage is like over and done with. And then my thought now is, if it is introduced to the public, does that dilute the work that we've done already? If they say, this isn't good and we want to see this, or we feel this way, and I'm just wondering what that balance is.
Kathy?
As I'm listening to everyone, and especially after what Lynn Alexis just said, I think too, if you do put it on the website to consider it, you almost have to have like a caveat that these other things have been considered and there's other opportunities. So you could either put it on the website that way, or you could, I guess, argue to say we don't need to, and then there'll be other opportunities for public input too. I mean, I whatever everyone thinks works for me.
On that note, you just reminded me, I believe Lynn Alexis mentioned early on in our meetings that, our mission statement does not have to be concrete and permanent, that we can revisit it annually. And so that if we do decide to finalize it tonight, it does not mean that it may not evolve over time. And especially if we start having the public appear and speak, or we become more interactive, there's other ways that this will evolve, and that might sort of meet those needs.
Yeah.
Hi.
Go ahead, Shalon.
Thank you. So I agree with everyone, and I think it's going to be a balance we're going to have to find between having confidence in kind of the representation that we all bring from our different walks of life and reaching out to the public. I think that we all are really diverse, and we were very inclusive in the statement. So I think there is value in kind of giving maybe a preview to the public, but we very much had at our hearts, right? We want to represent what the public need is. So I think that I hear both sides of it, but I do agree that we spend so much time trying to represent the public that we might just get ourselves in a circle, because it's not easy. So we open it up too much. My thoughts.
Chief Wright?
Yeah, I think we should move forward tonight with the mission statement. We've spent some time on it. We certainly want public input in this commission going forward, but I don't think it's, I think we already kind of elicited that through our own channels. And going forward, maybe this is a point to remember, put it out to if we want recommendations solicited to the HRC website, we can do that prior to us meeting on a particular issue or a subcommittee going forward. But I would call the question or the motion at this time if someone wants to make a motion.
So Lynn, you were going to talk at the same time Chief Bright was before we make a motion?
Yeah, all those points were really great. And to what Jaylon was saying, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Jaylon. I wonder if there's another way to include the public, maybe an interactive forum, like what would you like to see, or what needs do you need, kind of like to get that feedback and then circle back around whenever, or just through our, objectives and how or what they need. I think that that's going to be important too, to kind of see what are their needs in that way.
So my sense is that we can put this on the webpage once we have a motion, and that, again, when we have an executive director, there can be ways that throughout the year or just over time, we can make sure that that webpage is receptive and welcoming of receiving input to the mission statement or anything else. That can be collected over time and revisited by this commission as needed. And Ruben has been wonderful asking us our input for the webpage. And so that is also something that can be sort of created and tweaked as needed over time. So at this point, would someone like to make a motion that we finalize and approve this as the mission statement for now for the Revere Human Rights Commission?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimously agreed. All right. And in the little time that we have, before I say anything else, did anyone have any other business that they would like to present?
Madam Chair, I think it's time to start thinking about the complaint process and how people can come forward and voice their opinion. And I believe the public wants to see us in action. The mission statement doesn't really mean much to them, as much that they see things happening. And also, once we start going in action, we will reevaluate our mission, our goals, I hear a lot of concerns about the director who will be coming to direct us, or I think this group has been doing a great job. I think we should just continue forward to put the building blocks of this commission. And once the director comes in, he will find the foundation, and he will or she will rely on us to train them, because you can't bring someone with a magic judge and just expect them to do everything since the first day. So we have to continue doing what we started.
So thank you, Rashid. So this is my concern. Without an executive director, particularly someone that has some training, education, and or experience in civil rights policies and laws, if we get a complaint that has some legal component to it, it's somewhat sort of beyond really our expertise and knowledge, then there might be some complaints that, yes, we can support someone and advocate for them, but there might be other that really are beyond our scope to be able to handle at this time. That's my concern for waiting for an executive director. But I'm happy to hear from others. Yes, Karu.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate what you said. I think it's important to have someone who is more knowledgeable about kind of the legal piece of it. And then also, I think as a group, for me, in a way, for us to be together, how we show up for one another, how we do share our work. I want to also explore a common ground, and especially like a foundation, an understanding of human rights, an understanding of racism, an understanding of oppression, because all of that is really the core of it. You know, racism is the core of the work that we're doing right now in this country, and that has been embedded in this country for 400 years. So I would love to have opportunity to have that kind of foundation of understanding. It's like, what is it we're working toward? What are we representing? So that I would love to have that training.
Yes, I feel the same, and feel that's an important component of this is the education of dismantling racism and discrimination. Rashid, to continue with your point, let's remember that we're not completely cut off from the public. Right now, we have a contact form on the HRC webpage. It's not detailed that it's asking someone to describe the details of an incident or anything like that. However, it is a way for someone to contact us. So if someone did contact us and we felt like we could respond in some way, that any of us here have the expertise or the ability to make a recommendation, we certainly can start acting. It's not that we're going to abandon or dismiss any communication to us. I'm just reluctant to put a complaint/incident form on that page without having someone in place that can guide us. If it's eviction, housing, there's many other legal nuances involved. But it doesn't mean that if someone reaches out to us, that in the meantime, we might very well be able to help with getting rid or help providing some other kind of resources that for some reason they're coming through the HRC door rather than some other city door. So it's not that we wouldn't be available. I'm being a bit more careful of just not getting into things that are beyond what we can handle. And if those do come in at this point, we can refer them to the mayor's office, and the mayor's office can decide where to channel it within the city resources. Yes, Shalon?
Sorry, it takes me a minute to get off mute. Thank you. I wanted to just ask, in light of that, I feel and I appreciate a sense of kind of struggle with not having the director. And so I want to just understand maybe a little bit more about if it's a directive that you have or if it's kind of just personal feeling. I know there's a lot of momentum and there's a real need for us to get into the work we need to do. So I think we need to talk about, you know, what we can take on now and what we need to wait for a director for, because there are 12 of us, right? And not that the director isn't the figurehead here, but we should be able to do some good work and somebody should come in and walk in step with us, right? Definitely leadership, but walk with us. So I just wanted to understand that a little bit more, Madam Chair.
Do you want me to respond, Lynn, or would you rather speak?
I just want to add to that. So in that, I also want to understand what our resources are. So then we're not waiting until 2022. So if we can take a complaint and then say, hey, this is what we have again, 12 people, and then we could, you know, refer it out to the city. So what are our resources? How do we work these issues?
Just
go ahead, Dr. Garcia.
So in line with that, waiting for that's the reason why this whole process of finding an executive director needs to be accelerated. Because in a given year, in 1 year, so if we're talking about hiring someone full-time in 22, if we don't do it now, maybe within 3 or 4 months, or even now, I would say, we can have a lot of complaints in a given year, especially now given the current situation, the current conditions in the country. So, but there's one thing that we could potentially do if we cannot have a director. I think what needs to be done is to train everyone, at least receive the initial training, a professional development on racism, on structural racism, on ways to dismantle racism, on discrimination, things like that. At least you have a knowledge base of something that's important for this group of people, for all of us. So then, at the same time, we should be looking very quickly into the position of an executive director, because I can see we may have a lot of hot potatoes in our hands if we don't have somebody with the legal, expertise in the area.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And what you just explained about we all need training in dismantling racism and discrimination is actually the main reason I wanted to be on this commission, because personally, I've been immersing myself in some of those trainings in recent months. And I feel that not only this commission needs this training, I'd like to see it more widespread throughout city officials, city employees, so that it's not just those of us here. It's like sort of preaching to the choir in a sense. And the little bit of research that I did do in a sample of complaint forms and incident forms for HRC, I just saw the can of worms that it could open up. So my initial thought, yeah, sure, we can, let's just start going. I'm a doing action person. Sure, we're going to do this, create a complaint form. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is a little bit more involved, and we need some direction. So it's not because I want to be stagnant. And I see that what we can do in the meantime is continue building around our mission statement. I see that we can come up with ideas for a job description, candidates for the executive director, post the mission statement on our webpage. Come up, if you haven't submitted your headshot, please submit your headshot so people can see who we are when they go to that webpage. If there's any other suggestions that you have, I think what we're talking about for this falls under things like goals and action, but if others agree with needing training around dismantling racism and discrimination, these are also resources that I know 2 groups that do this kind of training, that we can compile resources. So I'm happy to do as much work that is within sort of my capability to help support the commission. I'm just being honest with, there's certain things I see that we need some direction, not to stall things.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Madam Chair. And like, I agree when you said, like, when it comes to us, it's kind of like preaching to the choir, and that these trainings should be not only available for everyone else, but kind of integrated into the system. So like teachers, for example, at RHS, when they're doing their, their annual trainings, that, destructuring racism within the school environment should be integrated into that curriculum. You know what I mean? Or like when it comes to the city officials, and trainings for those positions, it should be like integrated into the curriculum as well. So yeah, that's like my 2 cents.
And there, we might want to decide to have a youth subcommittee of the HRC, which Ruben had mentioned to me. I know that there's some changes happening in the police department that we can be updated on important information. So there are things that are happening that we can work on. I'm just being mindful of time now because we are approaching 6:30. And so when I follow up sometime after the meeting, probably next week, I will try to bring some clarity and gather my thoughts and all of your input to follow up and request different kinds of resources that you're drawn to offer to move us forward as much as we can, while we're also simultaneously trying to get an executive director in place for some trial period, that 1 year, if that's what we agree on.
Madam Chair, I just want to see if we are aware of any positive experience of those human rights commissions in the area. At least we can do some kind of benchmarking, learn from them, see if we can bring someone from them to talk to. They can train us on some basic stuff that we can do. Meanwhile, we have a wonderful group right here. We can do some work. We can do some work while we are waiting for the executive director, work on the vision, work on the common goals, work on the values. Maybe we can work on a generic form that we can, like a process that people can use for incidents and complaint. I think we can do some of that work. And if we feel like that's something that needs an expert, we can see if the city can provide us with some resources, as well as if the city has some translators or community liaison services that we can take advantage of. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashid. Did someone just raise their hand? Karu?
Rashid, you brought up a good point. I heard that the city of Cambridge, they're doing a great job in terms of like they have formed the human rights group and the work they have done for the community.
So if anyone has, the time, the interest, the ability to be able to bring me some of that information, it's helpful if you have a contact in one of these communities or you come across something online, please share it with me so I can share it with the group. Before we adjourn, if we are going to continue with the elaboration of a mission statement, meaning possibly vision, values, objectives, goals, so we can actually have some structure to the recommendation of these training programs or whatever, we need to decide about the subcommittee, because the mission statement subcommittee has completed its objective. And so we need to decide how we will go forward with that. So we need to make a motion about that before we have the motion to adjourn.
So are we saying a motion to dissolve the mission statement committee and then make a motion to have other committees that look at objections, goals, values?
Either a motion to dissolve the mission statement committee and create a new committee that will now work on sort of accessory pieces of that, or a motion that the mission statement committee, sort of subcommittee, continues with whichever members are willing to continue, and then other members this mission statement subcommittee may become sort of the umbrella term for all of the aspects. But we're at a time now that those who feel they can no longer serve should have an opportunity to sort of leave, and then others can come on board.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's smart. So instead of dissolving and reinstating, just saying this part is done for now. I don't know if we need to motion if people want to come off or not. I don't know if we need to change anything. I think it's just what's the next thing on the agenda, right?
So is anyone that serves on the subcommittee, the mission statement subcommittee, is anyone requesting to leave?
Is there anybody else who'd like to jump on the subcommittee? Who wasn't part of the mission statement?
I believe, Madam Chair, we need to decide what will be the next milestone or the next project. Then people that have some experts on that subject could jump in. Yeah, and the same thing for me. I just want to see what would be the next project and see if I can bring something to the table, or I should let one of my colleagues jump in.
I think there could be two ways to go about this. Researching mission statements and all of the different components. Sort of a vision usually precedes the mission statement, sort of a city that is free from racism, where people, treat each other with love and respect or whatever. So some kind of vision usually precedes the mission statement, and then core values are the next thing. So if we wanted to follow that typical process, that's where we would be going. As we're talking, we might be more productive if certain people have an interest in vision and core values, but others have an interest more in objectives, goals, actions, we could almost sort of subdivide in a sense, so that we're all working off a similar mission statement, but we're actually getting more done rather than doing it sort of one or two pieces at a time. Yes, Lynn?
So my thought is, since the bulk of our work can't really begin and hasn't begun, I'm wondering if we could just, as a Human Rights Commission body as a whole, kind of discuss some of these things together. Unless, I mean, unless we have an agenda next month that would, prevent us from doing that. I wasn't a part of the initial discussion. I think that's the meeting that I missed when a subcommittee was decided that it was necessary. But I think, at this point, I'm wondering if we could just kind of do these things as a whole body, since there's not much on the agenda in my that I'm aware of.
That is a consideration, since there are certain things we're waiting like a month or so while we're hopefully having an executive director. So that is a consideration. Just considering other things that have come across my email, I think that anything else that might need to happen in the meeting would not take up too much time, that we could still do that. So we could continue in that way unless someone objects.
I agree with that. I think it's a good thing, and it will give direction to the subcommittee. So hopefully that, I have to believe that our original discussion helped the subcommittee for the mission statement. So that line of thinking makes sense to me.
So if that's the case, then I, as the chairperson, and Shay is the chair of that mission statement subcommittee, she and I would work with the information we have from previous meetings that we have stored aside, that would get presented to everyone, that we cannot deliberate by email. However, it would be homework for everyone to review so that we could be productive when we come to the next meeting. Okay. So all in agreement with that? No objections to that? Okay. How, anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm sorry for keeping you a little bit over time, but this was productive, and I and/or Shay will be following up with you with some additional materials.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a
Good night,
one.
everybody.
Have a good night.